Okay, I'm aware this is a bit of a break of format for me, but hear me out. Around mid-2017, I learned about the wonderful world of Dungeons and Dragons. Ever since then, it's been a huge part of my life. Now, I'll still be making videos about regular games, but sometimes you've got to appreciate the classics. Also, D&D is coming back into style, and you've no idea how happy that makes me. Thank you, Matt Mercer! Keep it professional on it. That's why I'm going to make a video on Dungeons and Dragons. It might not be the last, however. So let's make it a plan for you newbies. Step 1, what is Dungeons and Dragons? Step 2, how does it work? Step 3, how do I make a character? Heads up, this stuff is going to be kind of intimidating at first, but later on I'm going to be making a character completely without a script, entirely just made up on the spot. Let's start with the first question, what is Dungeons and Dragons? Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D for short, is a tabletop role-playing game. It consists of an average of about 5 or 6 players. One player is deemed the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master, or DM, creates a world and a story within that world. The other players make characters using character sheets and play through that story. Now, how does it work? Let's make up a random situation. Ivan the Barbarian and Jackson the Ranger wander through the desert, the sun beating down on them. The DM asks them to make a constitution check to see if they can handle the heat. Ivan rolls one 20-sided die, also known as a 1d20. He rolls a 13, and because of his determination and hardiness, it totals to a result of 17, beating the difficulty class set by the DM of 12. However, the frail Jackson rolls an 11, but it totals to a 10, due to Jackson's weakness, and suffers the consequences. Jackson, desperately needing water, asks to make a perception check to find a town or village who may have something to help. The DM accepts it, and Jackson's player rolls a 16, and due to how perceptive he is, Jackson's result totals to a 21. Jackson picks up on the weak cawing of birds flying west. Look, if they're alive but weak, they must be heading for water. Follow them. And end scene. Now feel free to go back and watch that part again if you kinda fell behind on some stuff. But anyways, time for some explanations. Okay, when I said a constitution check, it means that the world is testing how good the constitution of the characters are. Each character will have a different constitution. Everything I said also applies to perception as well. We'll go over this more in depth in making a character, but for now, just know that most situations will go like this. First, the DM describes the situation. Next, the DM may ask the players to make a roll. Next, the players roll and the DM tells them if they fail or succeed. The players then describe what they do, and the DM may ask for a roll depending on how difficult the task is, and then this repeats. That's a simple gameplay loop for D&D, but how will you play without making a character? I shall never switch over to ad-libbing Run to teach you how to make a character by doing so step by step. Hello, live running here, no script or nothing. I'm not nervous at all, what are you talking about? So, in D&D, you make a character on a character sheet. This is all the information that you're gonna need. Not this one, this is just fluff. You can put your character's information on this, but this is for spells. But for making a character, you're gonna need to put them down here so that you remember and you can change it and add stuff. Because there's no way you're gonna keep an entire character in your head, right? So, I decided the best way to do that would be to do it with me. So I've got my phone with me, I've got the books to my right, and we'll make a character together. So, what class should we make? Yeah, what class should we make it? Well, there's a bunch of different classes. We have a barbarian who's kind of a rage fighty guy who it's essentially the tank. The bard, an inspiring musician, an expiring. I don't like not having a script. I keep stumbling over my words. A bard is someone who uses the power of creation, like art, like poetry, like dance, like music, to cast spells. A cleric is essentially a priest who calls upon their god to cast miracles for them, and can also break faces. A druid is a hippie that can cast magic. A fighter is a barbarian, but they're a lot more chill about it and they kind of think about stuff a bit more. A monk is like a fighter, except Bruce Lee. A paladin is like a cleric, except less healing, more smashy. A ranger is like a druid, but no one knows what they do. They can sneak, they can scout, they can cast spells. We've no idea what the ranger is for. The rogue is the edgelord that kind of sneaks around a bunch and is probably one of the most common classes aside from the fighter. There's the sorcerer, who's a spellcaster who gains magic from their bloodline, so it can be like an ancient bloodline that goes back to dragon blood or whatever, so they've got scales and stuff. And there's warlock, which is kind of like a cleric, but it's not exactly PC. It's not exactly a 1-to-1. They're not exactly on the same level. They don't look each other in the eye, and the warlock's patron doesn't really call back the next morning, that kind of thing. And then the wizard is a nerd who learns magic by reading. So, out of all these, I want to go with something relatively simple. So we'll go with, how about a monk? A monk uses Shaolin powers and can bop stuff in the face. So I've written down monk 1 there. That means I have 1 level of monk next to the race. So there's a bunch of races as well. So in the core game, we've got Dragonborn, Dwarf, Elf, Gnome, Half-Elf, Half-Orc, Halfling, Human, and Tiefling. The Dragonborn are draconic descendants of dragon. They're not half human, half dragon. They're a strange creation that come from the dragons. The dwarves are kind of stubborn, short people. They're, dwarves. They're like the Tolkien ones. They take a long time to bond, but once you do, they're good friends. And with the Dragonborn as well, they're quite similar to dwarves, but instead of being as stubborn, they're more prideful and proud and kind of full of themselves. Elves are near immortal. They can live up to thousands of years, and they kind of have a timeless view on everything. Gnomes are very good inventors. They can make stuff, and they're also known to be quite friendly, and not a lot of people have problems with them. There's half-elves, they're half-elf, they're half-elf, which means their mother or father is an elf. I don't know, I'm describing genetics to you. You know how genetics work. But they're kind of, they were half-human, half-elf, humans would probably call them half-elves, and elves would probably call them half-humans. They don't really fit in anywhere, so they're almost born adventurers. Half-orcs are the same as half-elves, except seen as kind of dangerous creatures, but they don't have to be, they can just chill. There's halflings, which are they're like the Hobbit from Lord of the Rings. How did I forget Lord of the Rings? They're very polite and kind, and they don't cause much trouble. And we've also got the humans, which they're you and me, you know what a human is. And then there's my personal favourite, the Tiefling. It's spelled Tiefling. Essentially, they're like half-elves, but replace the elf with a demon or a tiefling. So essentially they've got demonic blood running through their veins, and that makes them look all spooky. So how about we make what'd be good? How about we go with something a bit odd? How about a tiefling and their monk. So the background, there's a lot of different backgrounds, and there can be quite complicated. We won't get into those, but essentially you can look up the backgrounds, or you can just make your own one. Okay, so for the background, let's go with the hermit background. So the hermit background means that they lived out on their own. Maybe like they were the only tiefling in their town, and it was due to a curse put on the family bloodline, which means they were chased out of the town and forced to live in the wild on their own. Yeah, that could set up for something interesting. Maybe later on down the line they could find their old town. Now the player name, that's just the name of your player, so I'll just put down my name. Experience points, you get experience from defeating enemies. Now some dungeon masters do it, they just decide when you level up, which can be a bit more interesting. So we've got the alignment system. Now this is a bit of a touchy subject. You may have heard of the alignment system before, even if you don't play D&D. It's got 3 columns and 3 rows. The 3 columns are lawful, neutral, and chaotic, and then the rows intersecting it are good, neutral, and evil. So you can be lawful good, lawful neutral, not lawful evil, neutral good, true neutral, neutral evil, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, and chaotic evil. So lawful means you believe there should be laws and we should follow them. You should follow tradition. Neutral means it should be bent occasionally, but they're good guidelines. Chaotic means, yeah, no, screw tradition, kind of rebellious. Most warlocks or rogues or kind of darker classes will be chaotic, and most clerics and paladins will be lawful. So, since this tiefling was kind of chased out of his town and everyone views him as kind of like that, he probably doesn't have that much of a good view on society, so we'll make him chaotic good, which you mark by putting down CG. So, the name for a tiefling. Let's, okay, so a lot of the races have different naming traditions. So the tieflings sometimes just have regular old human names, but sometimes they name themselves after something they like or aspire to be. So it can be something like Harmony, or something like Grace, or sometimes even something like music. So let's give them something. Do you know what? We could let's make it Grace. We'll make a female tiefling monk called Grace. She's gonna be kind of a go with the flow, kind of good at flexible. That's it. That's the word. Jesus. Okay. So next up, your ability scores. So let me hold on. I'm gonna double check something. This is proof I've been playing D&D for 2 years, and I'm still double checking stuff. That means there's so much to learn here. It's a lot of fun, but you don't have to be perfect on it. Okay, so I've got this god awful looking website by Wizards of the Coast, which are the people who made the game. So how this works is how you decide your character stats, which is your ability scores. You've got strength, which is your ability to push and pull. It's strength, you know what strength is, push and pull and punch and stuff. Dexterity is your balance and your grace and your nimbleness. Constitution is your physical hardiness and how much punishment you can take. Your intelligence is how smart you are. Your wisdom is also how smart you are. See, how I differentiate intelligence and wisdom is intelligence is book smarts, while wisdom is street smarts. So intelligence is stuff like history and religion, while wisdom is stuff like insight and perception. You know what to look out for if you've got a high wisdom, but if you've got low intelligence, you couldn't remember what you had for breakfast. So there's also charisma, which is your ability to speak to people and convince them of things. So how you decide your stats is, I should probably pull up a notepad. How this works is you roll 4 6-sided dice, also known as 4d6. So we rolled a 1, a 5, a 4 and a 1. So what we do is we drop the lowest roll. Since we have 2 ones, we drop one of the ones, and that brings us to a 10. So we have a 10. Then we roll again. Another 10. Alright, now this isn't preferable, but for now we'll just make it work. So we've got a 10, we've got 2 10s, a 9, 11, a 15 and an 8. So we choose where those numbers go. So as a monk, you're going to want high wisdom, and you're also going to want a high dexterity or strength. So I'm going to put the 15 into wisdom. I'm going to put the 11 into dexterity. I'll put the 10 into strength. I'll put the next 10 into intelligence, and I'll put the I'll put the 9 into intelligence. She likely hasn't had the ability to read very much since she lives on her own. We'll put the 10 into constitution, and we'll put the 8 into charisma. She's been living out on her own and she's not exactly a people person. However, because of being a tiefling, her intelligence has a +1, so that becomes a 10, and her charisma has a +2, which becomes a 10 also. So we've got no minus stats, but the wisdom is really our only good stat. So we won't be doing a lot of damage to start out, but you will have the ability to increase these later on. So, your proficiency bonus. This goes up every 5th level, my bad. So, it starts out at a +2, and then at 5th level it becomes a +3, at 10th level a +4, at 15th level +5, and then so on and so forth. The maximum level is level 20. Inspiration, that's something a bit complicated, we'll get into that later. Now, for saving throws. Wait, no, I forgot something. So, how these work is that you get different bonuses to your rolls depending on what your ability score is. So, since our wisdom is 15, we have a +2. And if say we had a 16 in charisma, we would have a +3. So every even number, you get another bonus. So we get it, except for 10. So at 12 we get a +1, at 14 we get a +2, at 16 we get a +3, at 18 we get a +4, so on and so forth. But 9 we get a -1, at 7 we get a -2, at 5 we get a -3, and so on until 1. So, I'll just fill these in. Yeah, we're not exactly the master that we thought we would be. However, if you were to say try to break open a door, then you'd have to roll a strength check, right? So you'd roll a d20 and you'd add whatever little number was in here to get your total. That's what we were talking about before when Ivan increased because of how strong he was in his constitution. He had a +4, which brought him up to a 21 in total. So the saving throws is sort of a gut reaction, kind of a, oh crap, I've got to do this quick. So say you were trying to stop a heavy boulder from crushing you, that would be a strength saving throw. If you were trying to jump quickly before a trapdoor opened up beneath you, that'd be a dexterity saving throw. And depending on your class, you're proficient in different types of saving throws, so you get to add that +2 to your saving throw as well. So I'll demonstrate if I can find the monk in the goddamn book. So we have proficiency in strength saving throws and dexterity saving throws. So our strength saving throw is +2. That's very tiny, you can't see that, hold on. So our strength saving throw is +2, so is our dexterity. I don't know why this is so tiny, I haven't used this. You can also print these off and write them yourselves, I'll put that in the description. For our constitution, we have a 0. For intelligence, we have... Next, onto these skills, which are more definite versions of your skills. So, okay. So, think of it this way. If you were trying to test if your character knew how to do some math thing, then you'd roll an intelligence check and see the result. But if you wanted to see if your character remembered some event that happened before they were born that they possibly read in a book, then it would be a history check. So, as a monk, we can pick 2 skills to be proficient in from the list of acrobatics, athletics, history, insight, religion, or stealth. So, if we're making a graceful monk, then we'd probably want to be proficient in acrobatics, and also probably in stealth in case we want to get by unnoticed. However, our ability as our backstory as a hermit allows us to be proficient in medicine and religion. So now we just have to fill in these slots. So what you would do is you'd put in your your ability score bonus, which is this little number down here, and then if you're proficient in it, you'd add that little +2 we have. So I'm just gonna zoom in a bit so that you can see it. So for acrobatics we have 0, but we're also proficient in it, which means we have a +2. animal handling, or wisdom, is a +2 as well. And survival, +2. We should sort out our equipment next. So how this works is based on your background and your class. You have different bits of equipment, so your background determines your currency. So we have copper pieces, silver pieces, electrum pieces, gold pieces, and platinum pieces. Electrum pieces aren't really always used by everyone, but there's copper pieces, there are 10 copper pieces in a silver piece, 10 silver pieces in a gold piece, there's 10 gold pieces in a platinum piece, but also there's 5 silver pieces in an electrum piece. So 2 electrum pieces in a gold piece. So as a hermit, we start with 5 gold pieces, and that is it. Nothing else, nada for currency. So for equipment, we have a scroll case. We have a scroll case stuffed full of notes from your studies or prayers. We have a winter blanket. We have a set of common clothes and an herbalism kit. Next we should sort out the stuff we get from being a monk. If I can flick through the book fast enough. So how this works is you can choose certain things to have. So as a monk, you can choose between A, a short sword, or B, any simple weapon. We can choose between a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. So the Dungeoneer's pack and the Explorer's pack, that's kind of just so that this part isn't too cluttered. We'll go with an Explorer's pack. It has there's multiple packs. There's stuff like an Explorer's pack, there's a Scholar's pack, stuff like that. So each one has different equipment in it. Next up, we have 10 darts. So proficiencies. These are things you're good at, but they're not necessary. Okay, so as a monk, we have no armor proficiencies, which means we're not going to be wearing any leather armor. But we are proficient in simple weapons, and we get to choose one artisan's tool, which is something like a tinker's set, a cobbler's set, a leathering set, woodworking set, something like that. And we also have, we can choose a musical instrument. So if they're out in the wild, they probably don't have much need for like smithing or anything. Maybe they picked up an instrument to pass the time, something like a flute. Maybe they carved a flute out of a stick of bamboo or something. We are proficient with the herbalism kit we started with. Oh god. I say you guys find out I'm actually really bad at typing. We can learn one language of our choice. So every playable character speaks Common. You start with the ability to speak Common, but there's also a bunch of other languages which I won't get into here. You can easily find those online. So there's well, if they're a tiefling, they automatically speak Infernal, which is the language of demons. And maybe what will we go with? If they're living out in the wild, they might have encountered like a dryad or a pixie or something. Maybe they can speak Sylvan, which is the language of fairies and fey creatures. Our passive perception is essentially, when you're not really paying attention, how good are you at spotting stuff, and it's 10 plus your wisdom modifier, so it is 12. We have attacks and spellcasting. So we have our quarterstaff. Okay, I'll just put down Q staff, because quarterstaff doesn't fit. And we have we have a +2 as we are proficient with, we with simple weapons, we have a +2 to attacking with quarterstaff, and it does 1d6 damage. We've also got darts, which we are proficient in, so we have a +2, and they also do 1d4. Now, this segment over here, we have personality traits. So that's kind of what your character is like, how they are as a person. So maybe they're maybe after facing a life of ridicule from the people that were supposed to love her, maybe she has some self-confidence issues. Ideals is what they want in the world, so kind of their life goal, I guess. So maybe something like maybe she lives in the forest, but a town has attempted to kind of expand into the forest where she lives. Maybe she wants to get enough money to buy the land illegally so no one can build on it. Bonds is kind of the people they know and they can trust. So maybe, like we mentioned before, maybe she's friends with dryads throughout the forest. And her flaws, maybe we should have put self-confident. Okay, yeah. So we'll cut that out there and paste it there. So her personality trait, she fights with light feet. When walking on grass, her footsteps are near silent. As she's walked on grass her entire life, she fights. Next we can put all the stuff in here. So in here you put the abilities that your class gives you. So beginning at first level, while you're wearing no armor and not wielding a shield, your AC equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your wisdom modifier. That one's pretty simple, we don't have to worry about it, so I won't put much detail in it. So your AC is your armor class, which is how hard you are to hit. So it's 10, but plus their dexterity modifier, which is 0, but plus their wisdom modifier, which makes it a 12. Starting at first level as a tiefling, she can cast the Thaumaturgy cantrip. Okay, so I'll explain the spellcasting more in depth, but essentially, at will, she can cast the spell Thaumaturgy, which means she can do things like open and close unlocked doors, she can make a gentle breeze, she can light and put out small candles, stuff like that. So it's seen as sort of a beginning trainer spell, but it's pretty useful if you get creative with it. And she has hellish resistance, which means she's got fire resistance, because part demon, yo. Oh yes, and finally, one of the most important merits is dark vision. Of 60 feet? Yes, 60 feet. Within 60 feet of you, you treat darkness as dim light and you treat dim light as bright light. If you're entirely in the darkness, it means that you can't figure out colour, but you can figure out shape. Now to come up here, initiative. This will decide the order that you go in combat. So, and it's decided by your dexterity modifier. So it's 0, and our speed is 30 feet in one round. Our hit point maximum. Now a lot of DMs roll for the first. You can start with simply just your hit dice, which is okay. Each class has a different type of hit dice. So a monk has 1d8 to begin. And we'll just put 1d8. So you can either just put 8 for your hit point maximum, or you can roll a d8. But since we're not doing great on the stats department, I'll just say we'll leave it at 8, and our hit points are 8. Now temporary hit points are 0. Certain spells and effects and magic items will give you temporary hit points. And that's pretty much it. I think we're done. So, at any stage, please feel free to come back to this video and see how it works. If I do make another video of these, I'll probably go over maybe the spell casting next, or maybe combat. I'm not sure. So, if you did enjoy, wait, no, that's not for me to say, that's for future me. Anyways, back to the script. And that's how you play D&D. Well, to begin anyways. There's still plenty of stuff I can go through if you'd like me to keep making D&D videos. I'd be happy to. You shouldn't slow down my regular videos anyways. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you all have a very nice rest of your day. Goodbye. Okay, let's make a plan for you newbies. Thanks, neighbours.